Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to Macabre&Co.
Macabre&Co, and I'm the company today.
You are the company. Welcome back. Welcome to season 2, Ro.
Hello. It's exciting to be here in season 2. It feels so different.
Right? Different, yet somehow the same.
The production values are completely changed with this microphone.
Look at the shiny light.
Yes. This microphone has a light on it. Not only a microphone, but a lightrophone.
A lightrophone. No, I'm not going to mess with it. It's going to be perfect. Everything's... I shouldn't touch it. If you're new here, welcome to Macabre&Co. My general co-host, George, is not here this week, but we have our co-star, our...
Occasional guest
star, Rohan, is here with us today. And if you have not yet subscribed to the podcast, just give us a little subscribe. Follow us on socials. We are Macabre&Co on TikTok, on Instagram. You can join us on our Patreon at Macabre&Co as well. But with that said, let's get into it. Today we are talking about ghost ships.
Yes. Now we've got one each to talk about, don't we?
We do. We have one each to talk about.
Presumably there are more than two, but
right.
These are the two that we've chosen to talk about.
And this is giving us a chance. Maybe, we'll do Ghost Ships Part 2 or Part 3. Who knows?
Yes.
We also have a history with ships. We both worked on cruise ships. I was on cruise ships for 9-ish years, somewhere around there. Ro still works on cruise ships.
Yes, 5 years before the big C, and then still dipping my toe in the water from time to time.
Yeah, so
still occasionally on the ocean.
Much like George and I met on cruise ships, Rohan and I also met on cruise ships, and what a magical time they are. So keeping in mind that we do have a basis of knowledge for large floating vessels.
Yeah, at least that feeling that. So what I thought when I first started on ships, maybe you had a similar experience, was on ships. That was the first time aside from being on a plane, which feels very different, was on a boat where you couldn't see land in any direction. And you knew that you'd have to sail for at least a day in any direction to get somewhere. So when you're out in the Pacific, you absolutely, you can't swim to land. There's
there's nothing.
No chance. And there's, especially at night, I think when you look around and there's nothing but blackness in all directions, there's something really profound and can be very scary if you think about it in a particular way. That just blackness out there. It's a bit like space. And we talk about how one of my fears is drifting off into space.
Yes.
So I think being on a ship at night has a bit of a sense of being like on a space station, where you get the feeling that if you leave this little safe capsule, you will just, for all intents and purposes, disappear. But the little capsule will just keep going on without you. It's a really terrifying thought, and that really relates to what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly... Sometimes it happens, of course. People sometimes depart from ships and don't return to the ship. And they
very true.
Had that experience that terrifies me so much of just drifting away.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. That never crossed my mind. It never concerned me. I did not... I like the vastness of the ocean and the feeling that you're the only one. When you're in, the Bahamas and you can see 20 other cruise ships, I'm like, oh, it's not cool. Everybody else is here. But being in the Pacific, in the South Pacific, and like out where you're just going straight into the ocean with no land or ships around, I love it. I feel like I'm an adventurer.
We once, I was on a cruise ship in the Caribbean. Do you say Caribbean or Caribbean?
Well, I don't know now. You've said it.
Yeah. We were in the Caribbean. I think I change. I think I vary the way I say it.
I'm not sure how I say it, but I know that now that you've said it, I'll say it somewhere weird.
So I was once on a ship that at about dusk, they detected an SOS, flashing light SOS. So we turned around and we went and did a rescue. There were some guys on a speedboat. And of course, they made an announcement saying, we're going to turn around and do we've seen an SOS signal. We're going to turn around and investigate. So everybody went up on the open deck to look out and see the direction we were headed. And we must have been heading that way for 20 minutes. And I eventually saw just a little flash, but then it disappeared behind the waves. And what I learnt was that even in a boat at sea, you are so tiny and so difficult to see.
There's a spider.
A tiny spider just right here.
Yeah.
And if you're on the video, you could.
Just a little
distracting
spider.
Erica from my great story.
Yes.
Little tiny
Rescuing
spider
people.
and a little tiny thread right between us, just slowly climbing up, and now it's just stopped there and it's having a think about it. It's going to just stay right in front of us. That's absolutely fine. It's a teeny tiny one. I thought it was a speck of dust because I wasn't looking at it. But no, it's a tiny spider.
Did you rescue the people?
We rescued the people, and goodness knows why people would be in a speedboat between the islands of the Caribbean and Miami. I don't know what purpose anybody would have out there, but whatever likely purpose it is, that's probably what they were doing, and ran out of petrol or whatever. But the point is, they were like 8 or 9 people in a speedboat, and it was just so hard to see them. So if you were a person without a boat and without a without a lifeboat, or without even a little ring, even if you had that,
so easy to get
even
lost.
a boat is so difficult to see and could so easily get lost. Spiders coming back down right on my nose now. Hello.
We also once we once went on a ship that I was on, similar thing, rescued, but it was they had like made a raft with 2 boats, and they had probably like 10 kids and 10-15 adults in this makeshift, like they had tarps, and it was they had like all of their possessions. They had come from Cuba, and we got them near Grand Cayman. It was incredible. Anyway, we could tell stories of sea rescues another day. How about you tell us about your ship?
I will. But I think that was an important part of it, because in modern days, when there are so many boats out at sea, it's still completely possible for someone in a boat to almost miss being found and just drift away. And the ocean is so big, the sea is so big, and in modern times, it's still so difficult to be found. So we're talking about now old times.
Yeah.
So the story I'm going to tell you, and I was thinking of different titles for this.
Okay.
Different titles. Some of them are very bad.
Okay.
So we're talking about the Mary Celeste. And first I was kind of come up with a clever title. I thought, The Mystery History of the Mary Celeste.
Oh, mystery history.
It's very silly. And I thought, Mary Celeste, that's MC. So I was like, waka waka MC mystery. No, that's all right. That's one of the bad ones. Then I realized that it's an anagram of clear mystery. If you spell mystery with an E on the end instead of a Y.
Mystère.
So clear mystère. Still all right. Anyway, I've settled on the boring but very accurate The Mary Celeste, a haunting mystery.
Dun, dun, dun.
And just to clarify, it is the Mary Celeste. There was a short story written about this ship by Arthur Conan Doyle, which he called it the Marie Celeste. And it was so popular that the ship is often called the Marie Celeste. But it was the Mary Celeste. Okay, so let me just start with the facts.
All right.
Mary Celeste was a Canadian-built, American-registered merchant brigantine found abandoned and adrift in 1872. Brigantine's a 2-mast sailing ship. There's some other technical aspects, but it just looks like a classic 1800s sailing ship. Here's a picture.
Ooh, beautiful.
Looks like a classic
old
classic. Sailing ship.
It looks
Lovely,
like what we
sweet
put
old
on the
sailing
coins.
ship.
Like
Yeah, which was 30 meters long, 8 meters wide, 5 meters deep.
Oh, 30 meters long.
Weighed 200 tons. So for reference, approximately the size of a modern super yacht.
Yeah.
And the weight of 2 million slightly undersized bananas. Just to make it easy to understand the size.
Thank you.
Not brand new. She was an experienced ship. She wasn't a brand new ship. It had a history of sale, use, resale, repair, upgrades. At the time of the incident, the ship was owned by a consortium led by James H. Winchester, a couple of investors, and a new captain, new to the ship. Not a new captain, but a new to the ship captain called Benjamin Spooner Briggs, from a family of sea captains. Briggs was very well respected and experienced.
Was Schooner his real middle name? Or did they give him that?
Spooner.
Oh, Spooner.
Spooner.
I thought he was
Like the
named
Reverend
after a
Spooner.
schooner.
No, Reverend Spooner?
No.
Reverend Spooner. And I don't know if this is true, but there was a book. Do you know what a Spoonerism is?
No.
Oh. So there was a book that we had when I was a kid called The Book of Spoonerisms or something like that. And it told the story of Reverend Spooner, who famously would accidentally flip the first letters of words in a sentence.
Oh.
So instead of...
So he may have been dyslexic and misdiagnosed because it was in olden times.
So instead of Rowan Windle, he might have called me Woman Rindle.
Hmm.
Instead of driving the car, he might carve the drawer. And the book had all these clever ones where it made a new sentence that worked. So I don't think Reverend Spooner was necessarily real. But anyway, that's what I think of Spooner. And that's called a Spoonerism if you flip the first letter of two words in a sentence.
Well, we are learning here today. Learning new things.
Yeah.
Spoonerism. All right.
There we go. Anyway, Benjamin Spooner Briggs, also known as Benjamin Bruner Spriggs.
Oh, no.
He was from a family of experienced sea captains, well respected, well experienced. His wife and baby daughter, 2-year-old daughter, were on the trip with him, along with a hand-picked crew of 7 that were all experienced and apparently peaceable folks. 10 people in total on this ship. The ship's loaded up with a cargo of alcohol, 1,700 barrels. So it's loaded up in New York City with a plan to sail to Italy. New York City, headed to Italy, to Genoa. So crossing the Atlantic is the plan. So they depart on Tuesday, November 5th, 1872. 1872.
In 1872, got it.
They pause a couple of days at Staten Island to avoid some uncertain weather, then head into the Atlantic. And the only reason I bother mentioning that is that it shows that they're a cautious crew. They're not reckless. They've not headed out into danger. A second ship, the De Gratia.
Si.
Thank you. Thanks God. Thank God.
De gratia.
In Italian, maybe. Anyway, that ship, it leaves 8 days later on the same approximate route. On December the 4th, the crew of the De Gratia. Am I saying it right?
Yes, absolutely.
They spot the Mary Celeste moving strangely and with an odd sail set up, and they think there's something clearly wrong here, so they move to investigate. And this is just off in the middle of the Atlantic. There is nobody on board. 10 people have completely vanished.
Whoa.
Now, the ship itself, the sails are partly set, but not set for the weather, and in poor condition. There are some ropes hanging loose, some hatches are open, there's some water in the hold, but not an unusual amount for a sailing ship. There's an abandoned sounding rod, which is for measuring the water in the hold, which is just sitting on the deck. Final entry in the daily log is dated November 25th, which is 9 days before they found the ship floating.
Wow.
Plenty of food on board, 6 months of supplies, but nothing like sitting on the table, nothing prepared, but plenty of food on board. No clear indication of violence or fire on board. So otherwise, a perfectly good condition ship, but completely abandoned.
Wow.
Just in the middle of the sea, in the middle of the ocean, not near anything.
That's wild.
So the De Gratia.
I am enjoying this game.
So someone's going to get mad at me. The ship's that crew splits in half. They put half of them on each ship, and they tow the ship to Gibraltar for salvage. At the time, if you salvaged a ship, you'd receive a share of the value of the ship and its contents. So salvaging is quite a profitable thing to do. There was a Chief Justice in Gibraltar who was in charge of the investigation and the court hearing, and he seemed to be of the opinion that some foul play had happened, some crime at least, though without any actual evidence. But at one point, he suspected the crew of the De Gratia might have murdered everyone on board the Mary Celeste.
Oh, yeah.
Just thrown him overboard and then taken it for salvage for the money. And he also suspected the ship's other owner might have hired someone to come and do the similar thing. For insurance or some reason. But since there was no evidence, there was nothing on board to indicate that, the ship was released to its owners, and the fate of the Mary Celeste left to the imagination of the public. So that the theories of what could have happened, there's a couple of them. A scam to claim money, either insurance, salvage, reward, or something like that. But that's just speculation.
It does seem likely. The greediness of humans is unparalleled and
It
vast.
can be greedy. Number 2 is pirates.
Pirates!
Though there were lots of valuable personal items still left on board, and no evidence of violence.
Yep.
So I think that's unlikely. This is my favourite theory, is attack by sea monster.
Ooh.
A giant octopus or a giant squid. Now, the largest squid, how long do you think the largest squid is?
200 meters long.
Okay, it's not that big.
Maybe not yet. Maybe in the Mariana Trench there's one.
The largest recorded giant squid is 13 meters long.
Oh, okay.
The largest great white, for reference, is 6.5 meters. So it's twice as long.
Okay.
Twice as long as the largest great white. 13 meters is also the length of 65 bananas. But 13 meters, it's nearly the length of a humpback whale. So imagine a squid as long as a humpback whale.
That's very long.
So that's the most fun theory for me.
It's not as long as 200 meters, but it's long.
It's not as long as 200 meters, no. But it's also not supported by any factor evidence. It's just a fun theory that, hey, maybe there was some sea monsters. I like it. Another theory is that some fumes from the alcohol below might have caught a light. Maybe someone went down with a lantern and all the fumes from the 1,700 barrels of alcohol that they had might have caused like a flash explosion without causing damage.
How could a flash explosion with no damage back in those days?
It was just
too?
fumes. It might be like not enough to cause like fire damage, but just enough to frighten everybody. Now, what I didn't mention before is that there was a lifeboat which was missing.
Oh.
So there was one lifeboat on board which was missing when the boat was found, which definitely, to me, says that the crew definitely abandoned ship.
Yeah, absolutely.
For some reason, as opposed to foul play or to accident. But they must have done it fast because they didn't write down, we've left the ship because ABC. They didn't take their valuables. They didn't take their food supplies.
No.
And the lifeboat ropes had been cut rather than untied.
Oh.
So it seems to me like they, in a panic, abandoned ship.
Yeah.
Another theory of why they might have done that is that it could have been a water spout, which is like an ocean tornado, which might have caused a pump malfunction, might have led them to think that the ship was filling with water. There was that instrument for measuring that was left on the deck, just left abandoned as well. So maybe they mistakenly thought the ship was sinking rapidly and thought, oh, get off, let's get off quickly.
Yeah.
It could have been some natural phenomenon like that, or an alcohol explosion that made them think, oh, we've got to get off this ship immediately.
Yeah.
And then they've drifted or got too far away to get back, and that's it.
Yeah.
Because even if that ship was on fire, it's still more likely to be safer on the ship than in a little tiny ship, a little tiny boat in the middle of the Atlantic. In any case, I'd say it's very clear that they got onto the lifeboat for some reason and couldn't get back or didn't want to get back. But since they were never found, the Mary Celeste remains synonymous with unexplained abandonment.
Wow.
And since the crew and family on board were never found, their ghosts may be destined to drift the ocean forever.
Drift the ocean forever. I would like to propose a alternative solution.
Oh, yes.
Aliens.
That was one of the theories. I don't know why I didn't write it down, but aliens was one of the theories that maybe aliens came in 1872 and decided, let's take these 10 people.
We found them in the middle of the ocean. They must be for us.
They look experienced and peaceable.
Yeah. Famously so. Wow, so which one's your favorite? I mean, other than sea monster, what do you think is most likely that they just got out of Dodge, gotten that boat?
Well, given the presence of that, what was it called?
The water spout?
No, not the water spout. There was a sounding rod on the deck, which had been left there. So I think maybe some storms had come up. Maybe there was some strange pressure in the atmosphere, which was stuffing up, pushing water up their pumps and making it look like there was a lot of water down below.
Yeah.
So they got a sounding rod and went, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This is we're sinking. We've got to get off immediately.
Yeah.
And
That
then
does
they
seem-
just got too far away and couldn't get back. I think that's what
It
happened.
seems like the most reasonable solution.
Yeah, it's the
However,
most boring of the solutions as well.
Sea monster
unfortunately.
is a big.
Let's go with giant squid.
I think giant squid. Maybe it was the first ever recorded, a non-recorded 200-meter long squid.
Let's go with that. Yes.
That's what I think.
One like the beast from the movie The Beast.
Yes, just like that. One exactly like that. Well, it's my turn now.
Yeah.
Are you ready to hear about my ship?
Cannot wait.
Okay, everybody. I am going to tell you about the Queen Mary. So excited. So the RMS Queen Mary was a beautiful passenger ship. She spent 3 decades transporting the rich and famous across the Atlantic before she retired in 1967. She is a niece to the infamous RMS Titanic, and which sank only 18 years before Mary's construction began. So picture, if you've not seen the Queen Mary, it is like a classic cruise ship with the oh my gosh, not the funnels, but the smokestacks. Classic smokestacks, red, white, and black. Beautiful, beautiful ship. She was designed to be one of the largest and fastest passenger liners in existence. She was the first to be built exceeding 1,000 linear feet, and she twice held the coveted Blue Ribbon Prize for the fastest transatlantic crossing. So she beat herself, I guess. I don't know who holds that now. I did not do any further research, but exciting.
It's probably a plane.
Yeah. Stop.
It's probably the Concorde.
Oh my gosh. All right. I'm setting the scene here a little bit. She survived the Great Depression, World War II, managed to not crash like the Titanic, but underneath the glitz and glamour of this beautiful cruise ship, the haunted ship is hiding several dark secrets.
Ooh.
That's right. It was a sunny day, May 27th in 1936, when the Queen Mary departed from England on her maiden voyage. She had all the amenities. There was a dining room, swimming pools, radio broadcasts, a kennel for the passengers' dogs, a nursery for the children. There was even a hospital, and she was pretty speedy. She had a top speed of 32 knots, which is still pretty fast. Like, we would go, when we were taking the ship that we were on out to the South Pacific to like make really good time, we'd be going 22 knots. That wasn't the top speed, but that was the speed that we traveled at to like it was the perfect maximization of how much fuel we could spend for the distance. So 32 knots is still a speed that is impressive for a ship to travel of that size in these days as well. She could travel from England to New York in 4 days. But she wouldn't do it. They would take their time. You got to get the passengers eating and drinking. Her parent company, which was the recently merged Cunard White Star Line, was really desperate for success. Very much like they were when you see Titanic, the movie. Cunard went broke during the Great Depression. The Great Depression.
Help, I'm being repressed. I remember that. I saw a movie about it.
Anyway, during the Great Depression, Cunard went broke, and the White Star Line was still quite scarred by the Titanic and the Britannic that both had incidents. So their fates really rested on the Queen Mary and her success. And it seemed like their luck was finally turning. The Queen Mary dominated transatlantic travel. She was going fast. She held the blue ribbon from 1938 to 1952. And now that I'm reading it more closely, I think it's the blue riband. Anyway, yes, riband, not blue ribbon like horses get. Riband. From 1938 to 1952, and had celebrities, politicians, even royalty, all kinds of people aboard.
It really was a famous ship.
Really
in
was.
Its time. Now, we see it, we hear about it, and it seems like it's an old relic, just some ship.
Yeah.
But it really was the far lap of ships, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was really at a time that, it was just 18 years is not that long after Titanic. People really remembered that. That was such a big incident. And for them to really, they were really trying to bring back cruise ships and passenger ships. And they really did. This ship was really pivotal. However, at least 47 people died aboard the Queen Mary during her time at sea. There's a few we'll get into it. We're going to get into the few. There's some
Quite a lot of people. There's 4.7 times as many people disappeared on the Mary Celeste.
It's true. There's a few really like very well documented ones, and there's a few not so documented ones, but just a little more history about the ship, because in 1939 she was drafted into military service. So Britain believed that the size and the speed would keep her safe from the German U-boats, and it really did. It is rumored that Adolf Hitler offered $250,000 reward to any submarine captain who could successfully sink her, but nobody did.
Is that still valid?
I doubt it.
Could we sink her now and claim that?
No, I think that ship has sailed. But it did come at a cost. She was pushed to the limit, often cramming 15,000 soldiers into spaces designed for 2,200 passengers. She was stripped
15,000 people on board.
Yeah.
Wow.
Into the passenger spaces for 2,000. Like,
Well, you consider that now some of the modern cruise ships, the new ones coming out, have 7,000 or 8,000 people on them,
yeah,
and they are 10 times the size of this ship.
yeah,
That's astounding.
like wild.
15,000
I don't know where they
people.
would have put them on. I can't even
They must have just been
imagine.
sitting shoulder to shoulder on the deck.
Yeah, or just sleeping in the lobby, like everywhere. Yeah, absolutely wild. They stripped all of her fine decor and all the amenities to make more space, so they really would have just gutted the ship to make room for everyone. I'm imagining like cots, like you would see in like a medical center in war times or something like that, like just people lying in all available spaces.
It's been a nightmare working in guest services that time.
I doubt they did. I bet nobody worked in guest services. The smokestacks were painted navy gray and the portholes were blacked out and welded shut. And this transformation earned her the nickname the Grey Ghost for her time.
That's such a cool nickname.
Right? So for her time as a military ship, yeah, but they called her the Grey Ghost. And in the summer, the soldiers, oh my gosh, my words, soldiers slept shoulder to shoulder is what I'm trying to
Reverend
say.
Spooner.
You started it. That's it. It's your fault. They slept shoulder to shoulder above deck and took turns sleeping in the bunk beds below deck. The lack of airflow made the cabins suffocatingly hot, and some soldiers even died from heat exhaustion. Others jumped ship, so either may have perished in the ocean or swam to shore if they saw it, but some people just had to go. It was no longer a luxurious cruise ship. It was hell on ocean. Legend says that the staff went stir crazy as well. One rather gruesome rumor is that the galley crew locked the chef in his own oven one night and roasting him alive.
What?
Yeah.
So does it say why?
No.
Was he putting too much salt in the potatoes?
That's definitely it. There is no record of the chef's actual death, so that is...
This might just be a rumor.
Probably a legend. There is, however, substantial evidence that the Mary was responsible for the deaths of over 300 people in the process of being a military ship. Another thing that happened to the Mary in October of 1942, she accidentally collided with the HMS Curaçao, a much smaller cruise ship that was escorting her around the Irish coast. So the Curaçao was zigzagging in front of the Mary, hoping to throw off any potential missile attacks. And the 82,000-ton ship, which is how big she was, accidentally plowed right into it, snapping it in half while it was trying to help. Yeah, just...
Rude.
Right? Just trying to help. Some of the crew died instantly. Others drowned or caught hypothermia and died in the freezing water. The Mary never stopped to rescue them, as it would have compromised the thousands of soldiers on board, and it was wartime. An estimated 329 men died as a result. The truth of what happened was sealed until the war ended 3 years later. They didn't tell anybody. They just kept on going. Yeah.
That's wild.
Right? Just off we go.
They cut another ship in half.
Yeah.
An Allied ship.
Yeah.
And then just bye.
Just latered and didn't tell anybody for 3 years.
What's it called? Leaving the scene? What would that be called? An automobile?
Leaving the scene of a crime?
Leaving the scene of a crime.
Hit and run.
Hit and run. A hit and run on a whole ship.
Yeah, they just later dazed right out of there.
Stunning.
Yeah. So by that time, after that was when the war was over, Queen Mary had undergone a 10-month renovation that took away all the records of military life. All the paintings came back, the furniture, the fine china. Everything was returned to the cabins and the dining rooms and was ready to go back to dazzle the rich and famous again. But doesn't matter how much expensive decor and paint you put on it, some things that happen just stick with you, and they just stick with the ship. And the Queen Mary was now a haunted ship. So the ship is reportedly haunted by over 100 spirits, the most infamous being the spirit of stateroom B340, where paranormal activity is so frequent and intense that some of the crew members refuse to go inside. Everyone seems to have their own story about who or what haunts the room. One of those is that in 1948, a third-class passenger named Walter Adamson mysteriously died there. It could be his ghost, or was he killed by the ghost?
Was he staying in third class, or is that just your opinion of him? This third-class passenger.
Well, it is funny you should say that, because the thing that in my research I found that there wasn't actually a B340 in third class. So B340 is a first class room.
So maybe he was a third-class passenger in the other sense.
Yes, or maybe someone made that one up. Who's to say? Another theory claims that the staff locked a man in his third-class room after he murdered 2 women in the 1960s. During the night, he began to beat on the door and screaming to the guard outside that something was in the room with him. When they opened the door in the morning, they just found his body, and it was mangled and ripped apart.
Wow.
Yeah.
Giant squid?
Small porthole, doubt it. One woman said she was woken when the bed covers were ripped off of her in the middle of the night and she saw a man looming at the end of the bed. Others have heard phantom voices, complained that the faucets turned on and off by themselves. The ship received so many negative reports in the 70s that B340 was closed to the public for over 30 years. It was opened as a haunted attraction in 2018, although the key comes with a fierce warning, and even the current captain is too scared to enter. I should mention that in 1967, when she was retired, they sailed her to Long Beach, California, and just parked her right there in the harbor, and it's now a hotel, haunted attraction, so you can still go visit the Queen Mary today, and we have. So
yes, I was wondering when you would mention our relationship with the Queen Mary.
Once I get through all the ghosts, we can discuss, because we've stayed there together, and I've stayed there separately. I stayed when I was...
You what? I'm kidding.
I had a life before I met you.
What?
And one of those nights, I slept on the Queen Mary. Because the cruise ships for the cruise line we worked with often docked next to it. So I was supposed to be getting on a cruise ship the next day. And I stayed in the Queen Mary and then got on for my contract. And it was a great time. So, even the current captain, yes, too scared to enter B340. Another haunted area includes the former first-class swimming pool, Boiler Room 4, and the doorway where team member John Petter was tragically crushed during an emergency drill by the doors.
Just those watertight doors will not stop.
They do not. Absolutely do not. You can see Petter's ghost. He's often spotted wearing blue coveralls. Sometimes he'll run behind people whistling as if to warn them. Other times he'll ask guests if they've seen his wrench. And when they turn back to him, he's gone. And the amount of ghostly activity aboard the Queen Mary has earned it the title of most haunted ship in the world, and it attracts many paranormal fanatics and history buffs as well, because it's a historical fixture as well. By the 1960s, so commercial flight had become the preferred method of transportation. The ocean liner industry had kind of gone dry. Transatlantic travel wasn't really the golden years anymore. So this is when Cunard decided to sell her to the city of Long Beach, where she would be a tourist attraction. And with the exception of a few modern updates, the Mary still looks like she did in her heyday. It's grand, it's glamorous, they have all the fixtures. It's known as the Ship of Woods due to the impressive number of mixed woods used in its construction. It's really fantastic. So she was sold to Long Beach, California, became this hotel. She left for her last cruise from England October 31st, 1967, and that voyage took 39 days because the ship was 8 feet too wide to pass through the Panama Canal. So they had to sail around Cape Horn on the way to Long Beach rather than going through the Panama Canal. She arrived in December 1967 and opened to the public in May 1971. Over 50 million guests have visited the ship now. And now she's been in the waters of California longer than she was ever in the North Atlantic. So she's really and truly in her home.
She's a California girl now.
She is. However, another death that I forgot to mention, deaths on board had began even before she was named, because construction worker Malcolm Aiken fell off a scaffold at the stern of the ship's hull in 1934 while they were building her and died. So even when they were building. The first ocean-going casualty happened on the return trip of the maiden voyage. That was able-bodied seaman Arthur John Francis Golding, quite the name, fractured his skull, they assume, while scrubbing the deck, and was buried at sea. You don't get a lot of burials at sea anymore. There's so much paperwork.
We didn't hear about him anyway.
Yeah, no official burials at sea. The last death during the ship's sailing life was in her final voyage to California, when Leonard Horsburgh, a fish cook, suffered a cerebral hemorrhage due to heat stroke, just when they were crossing over the equator. So that was that one. The single greatest loss of life involving the ship occurred on October 2nd, 1942, when I'm going back again to the other one.
That was when it speared the other ship.
Yeah, that's when it speared the other ship. I put this in my notes twice. I'm leaving this in. Anyway, they collided. It was a tough time. That note, I know I put that note in because I mentioned earlier 338 people died. There were 439 people on board. So 101 survived the collision. So I would love to read the book written by one of them, and did they get to shore and say, hey, this is what happened? How did it take 3 years if there were survivors? Were these people not believed? I have questions for those survivors. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, right. Other legends include a young girl who haunts the second-class pool, or the former first-class pool that we mentioned earlier. There is a young girl. She kind of plays along the edge. She doesn't get up to too much mischief. There is a father who murdered his 2 daughters on board. And that's a scary one. So the little girl that haunts the first-class swimming pool, you can hear her singing songs, playing hide and seek. Allegedly, she died in the second-class pool, but then upgraded herself to first class. So while she died in the second-class pool, you hear her haunting the first-class pool.
Was she in second class going, I would die to get into first class?
Right? However, there were no deaths recorded in either of the 2 pools, so we're not sure where this little girl ghost came from. The worst documented injury that I found was in August 1951, when Mary Ford dove into the first-class pool and hit her nose and lip on the bottom of it. So, didn't die, just cut herself.
Just hit her nose a little bit.
Just hit her nose. But the story of the little girl has really become part of the ship's lore. The 2 sisters, so Peter James is a now past paranormal investigator. He really believed that the 2 sisters were murdered by their father in room B474 sometime in 1959. The father was distraught. He murdered his wife and his 2 daughters and then killed himself. Nobody really knows why. Dana, Penny, and their mother were found in bed strangled by a ligature, and the father was found in the bathroom. Victim of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Now, the girls can be seen and heard in the room on deck B in the surrounding corridors, sometimes playing. They sometimes see Diana in the cargo hold area, and you can hear her playing around in the archives section, the forward areas of the ship. I would say, how do you know that that's that ghost girl? How do you know that's not another ghost girl? How do you know there's not 20 ghost children? But
good question.
These are the questions. And I got confused earlier when I was talking about the number that doesn't exist. It was this research that I was doing. So that the B340 that's the right room. It's this one, the B474, where the father killed the daughters. That room, the room that currently holds that number was originally 2 second-class cabins, B162 and B164. So in the time that he killed his family, allegedly, there was no B474. So that room didn't exist. So either somebody's misremembered this story, or the ghosts are lost. Who's to say, really?
Sure, details get a little murky over the years, and they might be recorded wrong here and there. And...
Also, but an event of that magnitude would have been recorded in the ship's records.
Yeah.
Like, you have a triple homicide. Although they did kill 300 people and didn't tell anyone about it for 3 years.
Yeah, that's a pretty big one.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Right? So those are the generally accepted ghosts and the stories and a bit of the history of where the Queen Mary is from. Now, as we mentioned, we've been there. I went in 2016 before I met you. And at the same year, at the beginning of the year, and then at the end of the year I met you. And then we kept doing haunted things.
Yes, and then we worked together on a ship which left from Long Beach. And where the Queen Mary is now, she's right next door to where our ship would dock every week. So you would just look out and you would see the Queen Mary every week. You would see the Queen Mary, and it would be a 2-minute walk. We would, if we wanted to go downtown Long Beach, we would walk to a little bus stop, which was next to the Queen Mary. So,
and they gave us discounts if we wanted to go on for the day, so you could go look. But when I went, I stayed and didn't do any like real ghost hunting. It was a really charming room. It was really cool. Nothing haunted happened to me, but it was at Halloween time. And something they offer now is called Dark Harbor. And it is so incredible. They turn the Queen Mary and a bunch of the bowels of the ship into a haunted house. And you go in and you go through like the boiler room, and there's haunted things jumping out at you. And there's, like different haunted houses, haunted house, haunted ship things. And they have like quite like a little carnival, and it's very like, think of Halloween Horror Nights or like a really high production value haunted house, if you don't know what Halloween Horror Nights is. Wherever you go in, and so you can go into these haunted houses, and it's wild. They do a really great job, but you're really like traipsing around. So I love that. We should definitely go that. But when we went...
Well, we went... we were joining the ship together, so we had a night in Long Beach, and we chose to stay in the hotel. So we stayed on board, and they have an after midnight ghost tour, which is run by some person with a variety of equipment and electromagnetism and stuff, and all these different divining rods and things that they hand out to the tour group. And it was something like 1 to 2 in the morning. Oh,
it was like I think it was 12 till 3. It was so long that we left it a little bit early, because we're like, this is...
You go right down into the bowels of the ship, in the engine rooms. You go through the door where that boy was supposedly cut in half.
Yeah.
And into some really pitch black places.
We went to the
swimming
pool, didn't we?
Yeah, you go all around.
Yeah.
Absolutely all around.
And
I am not much of a ghost believer, but I was terrified. I found it really scary. I've got a big imagination. Very, very scary things to do.
And I am a believer in ghosts. I've seen ghosts. I've seen things that science can't explain. So I was ready to hear some ghosts. And we went through the pool room where the girl's supposed to play, and right into like and he's the ghost hunter fellow host, has all of these stories, and there's different things like, this ghost prefers the divining rod, or this ghost, we pour a little drink of vodka for this ghost, and it'll be gone when we come back later. Like,
leave a cigar out for this ghost. Yeah.
I still have the recording on my phone for sure, because I've just kept transferring the data. I still have my recordings from the Queen Mary, so I should post those on the Patreon, because...
It is an amazing experience, and that is available at Long Beach. If you are going there for a cruise or for
fun,
I don't know, the aquarium or whatever you're going to Long Beach for, a haircut perhaps.
The comedy club.
The comedy club, yeah. Maybe the steakhouse down by the water.
Hamburger Mary's.
There's a great sock shop there, which sells all Happy Socks, Happy Feet, maybe. No, that's a different sock company. That's the Penguins. Anyway, there's a great sock shop. There are lots of great reasons to go to Long Beach. There's a guy that drives around in a pink car listening to Aqua at full volume, a pink little convertible. He might not still be there, but he was there one day. So
the moral of the story is definitely go see the Queen Mary, and I cannot recommend enough to go during Halloween time. The next time we go, we should go at Halloween time, because it is
Yes.
double scary.
And I got to say, just completely back you on how you said it's the did you say nephew or niece ship of the
The niece
Titanic?
ship, yeah.
The niece ship, the perfect way of putting it. It is the closest thing to walking around on the Titanic. It
Yeah.
looks just like how you imagine it, inside and out. It looks exactly like walking on the Titanic. So much so, you know what I'm about to say now. I can see you laughing now because you know I'm about to mention that
Our favorite film.
the worst movie ever made, called Titanic 2. We won't give away the plot, but if you
Written,
want to...
starred in, directed by Shane Van Dyke, who absolutely took all of his grandfather Dick Van Dyke's money and put it into this movie.
If you would like to... I'd say it's best to just make a drinking game out of it. It's not a good movie.
It's a fantastic time, and you see some Queen Mary shots.
If you enjoyed Sharknado, you might like...
Yes.
You might like Titanic 2.
But it's definitely not as good as Sharknado 5.
But in the role of Titanic 2 is the Queen Mary.
Yeah.
So that's why I bring it up. Yeah, it's a beautiful ship.
Yeah, beautiful ship.
Historical. Didn't know about it cutting another ship in half.
I know, right?
That's the biggest takeaway for me.
Being called
That's
the Grey Ghost.
Wild. The Grey Ghost.
What a...
I mean, if you're going to get cut in half, being cut in half by the Grey Ghost is a pretty... Like, you don't want to get cut in half by the Fluffy Puppy.
No, definitely not.
The
I wonder
Grey
if I can...
Ghost.
I'll try to find some pictures of her as the Grey Ghost and put them on Instagram so everyone can see.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'd love
All
to
right.
see that.
Any final thoughts for the people?
Do not try and help the Grey Ghost.
No,
Don't zigzag in front of a large ship.
absolutely do not do
Is my
it.
big takeaway. Do not abandon your 30-foot,
No, just
boat.
for a water spout. Don't do
your
it.
30-meter boat in the middle of the ocean because you need it. And if you're a ghost, now you get to use the first-class pool.
Yeah. All you
There-
have to do is die to get
there-
up
there
to
are
the
some
first
benefits.
class pool. Make sure you follow us on all of our socials at Macabre&Co. We are everywhere. We are on TikTok until it's banned. We are on Instagram. We are on Patreon. You can email us at macabreandcompany@gmail.com. And remember, friends, stay spooky.
Stay spooky.
Thought you were going to do it at the same time.
I didn't know, so I did it the wrong time. Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Yay.
friends. Bye.